All right. Well, everybody, I think that we're going to get started. I understand that you can see me and not necessarily each other, and that's just fine for now. My name is Justin Wedes. I am with Flow Video, and I'm really excited to speak with you today. We're going to talk about video, we're going to talk about storytelling, and we're going to talk about the tools that exist to really help you to become what I call a digital storyteller. I have spent the last 10 years of my life as a digital storyteller, helping organizations and brands tell their stories online through compelling video content and other marketing content, and really authentically engage with their constituents, with their members, with their customers, with their boards, with their employees. And I'm super excited to speak with you today. And thank you, Motown Digital, here for your message. All right, wonderful. So let's dive in. And if anybody has any challenges along the way, I see Motown Digital support is right there for you to keep you connected. And please let me know at any point if you have any difficulty seeing or hearing me. And hopefully they can work with me to keep things moving. But so far, so good. So as I said, my name is Justin Wedes. I'm the Director of Growth at Flow Video. We are a boutique movie and film production company based out of Troy, Michigan. We're super excited to be here and to be a part of the Troy Chamber. Our bread and butter, what we love to do every day, is to create video content. And especially in this time of quarantine and lockdown and remote working and all of this new world, this virtual world, we have been producing and creating digital virtual events, both remote and in-person events. Again, taking those video skills that we've got and applying them. But I don't want to talk as much about that today as I do about digital storytelling and the tools that we have at our disposal to be able to tell stories. As so many of you as nonprofit managers and leaders and people involved in important causes every day understand, the thing that we're selling is our vision, is our cause, is our story, is what motivates us, what drives us to do what we do. That is the quote unquote product of a nonprofit. Of course, it's so much more than that. It's so much more than just selling a product. But at the core of it, what we do as nonprofits is we communicate what motivates us and what drives us. And I believe, and what I've learned in my experience, is that video is one of the best, if not the best platforms to communicate that passion, to communicate excitement, to communicate a sense of shared purpose, a sense of shared vision, a sense of shared cause. And so I've been working with dozens, now probably in the hundreds of nonprofits over the years to really help them utilize video as a powerful tool in their arsenal. I should say off the start, it's not the only tool. Of course, a great marketing strategy is multi-channel. That's a buzzword that you hear a lot these days, but it's true. So video is one component of an effective marketing strategy, but I believe, and at our company, we believe it's the centerpiece. It's really what holds together a marketing campaign and really pushes it forward. But let me back up a little bit and start a little bit with a story. So about 8 years ago, I was working, I actually had started my own marketing company and was doing a lot of work in the crowdfunding space. And we were approached by many, many nonprofits and community organizations to go ahead and create crowdfunding campaigns for organizations. Crowdfunding was just beginning to become a real thing, a big thing in 2012, 2013, was really picking up speed. Kickstarter, Indiegogo, CrowdRise. There are a number of platforms, but the principle is the same, and all of you know that. And I met a woman, an amazing woman in Highland Park, Michigan, named Shamayim Harris. We all called her Mama Shu. And Mama Shu, if any of you have met her, I don't know if you have, she's become a bit of a celebrity in the past few years, but still lives and works every day in Highland Park, and is an amazing woman. And she just exudes this beautiful positive energy because, at her core, what she does is help her community. She doesn't see this so much as an institution, as so much as a her life work, what she does, but she's built around her an incredible organization. But when I met her, she was really just getting going on her vision. She told me a story of when her son, her young son, Jacoby Ra was his name, was 3 years old. And in her neighborhood in Highland Park, she told me this story that one day that he was walking in the neighborhood and he was hit by a car, by a hit and run driver. And she lost her son, Jacoby Ra, and it just tore her apart. Anybody who's experienced loss like that can attest that it's just an unimaginable, unthinkable thing to happen to a parent. And when this happened, her whole life was thrown upside down. And already in her life, she was committed to uplifting her neighborhood through some really trying times. But this really struck at her and really hit her hard. And she didn't know what to do, at first. But she very quickly realized that she needed to do something. And what she did was she created a park in his honor, just next door to her home, in a blighted, abandoned lot right next door to her. And she called it Jacoby Ra Park. And she began to envision how she could turn her grief into beauty. It's in hindsight, I mean, it's an incredible thing, but in the moment, you can imagine how difficult it was. But she decided that that having gone through this experience, that she was unbreakable, that there was nothing that could stop her, and that if she was able to transform this grief and this pain into positivity, into beauty, into some kind of betterment for the world, that she was completely unstoppable. And at the time that I met her, just a few years after that had happened, after her loss, she was on a mission, this woman. And anybody who she could, get a hold of and talk to, she would share this vision with, and they were suddenly completely sold on it, completely on board with helping her to not just build this park, but it grew, the vision grew beyond that, to renovate her neighborhood, to raise blighted buildings, and to build an eco village, sustainable modular living. I mean, all of this incredible vision grew around her, all coming out of this point of grief, this moment, in this dark moment in her life. And I understood from a marketing perspective, from a communications perspective, that it was the story at the heart of Mama Shu's life that really drove her mission. And when she communicated that to people, she was able to do tremendous things and to build tremendous support. No amount of PR or marketing can replace a great story. That's the honest truth. That the stories that we tell each other about our lives, about our families, about our beliefs, about what motivates us and drives us, are often the core of our marketing strategy. That's why so often when you hear from startup founders and they talk about the problem that they've solved, it usually begins with a story about something in their life that they just needed to fix. And the story, in that case, may or may not be entirely true. It may be a little bit fabricated, but the idea remains the same, that it's really stories that motivate us. It's stories that drive us to action. And so I share this story with you for a very specific reason, which is that a lot of times in our work in marketing our nonprofits, in marketing our causes, we as believers, we as people who are so deeply committed to the cause, we carry that bias into the work, and we just imagine that everybody else has that motivation already within them, has that spark that drives them to do what we are already doing. The reality is that's not true. And if we think about it for a minute, we realize that so much of the work of outreach and communication and marketing for nonprofits is about sharing that spark, sharing what it is that drives us to do what we do. I say this not just as a marketing expert, but also as somebody who himself has started a nonprofit and who continues to do nonprofit work. I never take for granted that the people that I'm engaging with, the donors, the potential donors, the volunteers, the potential board members, all of the people in the ecosystem, the vendors, the contractors, the employees, all of the people in the ecosystem that I'm working in, I have to be able to impart that spark, that motivation, that passion to them. And it is through storytelling. It is through the shared stories that we collectively hold that that mission is promulgated. And so I set out, after my experience with Mama Shu, when I met Mama Shu, I realized very quickly that this was a powerful tool for not just for crowdfunding, but for campaigning, for marketing, but in the nonprofit space, in the political space, in the advocacy space, even in the for-profit space, working with brands, with startups, mission-driven organizations, mission-driven companies. I quickly realized that storytelling was at the heart of that work. And I have, in the years since then, in about 8 years or so, not only built up my own marketing firm, and now with Flow Video, been able to take stories and really communicate them on screen and in person with my clients, but also been able to translate that into real growth for these companies and for these organizations. And what do I mean by that? I mean that a video is a starting point. It's an opening into a conversation. It's a call to action. But what do you do after that? What is the so-called ladder of engagement? Where do you move from there? That's also a part of what we do at Flow Video. And that's also a part of my work is sort of building out a ladder of engagement to be able to deepen relationships with people and deepen the asks of them, not just from a monetary standpoint, but also from the standpoint of what are you doing to help this mission, to advance this cause. And so I've worked with social movements, I've worked with nonprofits, I've worked with community organizations across the board to build out campaigns, multi-pronged campaigns with complex messaging, but that all originate in a great story. And so, with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about where we are in this current moment. So many people have had their business models, their nonprofit operations upended by COVID-19. Our own business pivoted quickly into the virtual event space. But one thing that I can tell you, as I was preparing this presentation, I had a whole PowerPoint that I've done about digital storytelling, and I threw it out the window and I said, look, the game has changed. The game has changed. What do I mean by that? I could give you stat after stat after stat about the effectiveness of video content. In 2018, 2019, what share of internet traffic was consumed by video consumption? I mean, the numbers are staggering. How much of the internet is really people watching videos? But in COVID, everything has changed and everything is accelerated. Look, right now you're watching me on video. This presentation is in itself a video. It'll be archived and recorded and shared. Who knows? Let's see. Maybe it'll be shared around, and maybe you'll have somebody that you want to share it with. But the reality is that the game has changed. And so video has become not just a tool by which nonprofits and brands communicate, it's become the platform itself. I like to say that we were in the business of making videos, event videos in the past. We made a lot of gala videos, fundraising videos, campaign videos that organizations would showcase at their major events. Now we're actually not in the event video business. We're really in the video event business. We're not just creating events, videos within events. We're creating those events themselves. We're actually building and deploying the platform upon which people are engaging with this content. And I'm not going to get into the details and the technicalities and all of the logistics of that. That's something we definitely can talk about off screen. But what I do want to talk about is creating those experiences. That's what we're ultimately doing, not just in a pre-recorded video now, but also in live content, creating experiences that are engaging and interactive, where we have 17 people now all connected right now in this moment. And what can we do together? What can we share together? How can we motivate each other to really step up our storytelling game? How can we motivate each other to really dig deep into those authentic stories that we might be a little bit bashful about sharing on camera or off camera? Those moments, those personal anecdotes, those moments of vulnerability are what make for great content. And I spend a lot of my time working with nonprofit leaders to examine and sort of soul search around what is it that really sparks the mission of this organization, what really drives you to do what you do. So as I'm speaking, I'd love in the comments, if somebody is open to it, talking a little bit about and maybe sharing, briefly, a little spark of wisdom of their own, and maybe a story of what they've sort of what's motivated them to do what they do. I know we can't see each other, but I think it's an opportunity for people to share. It's I think a powerful element of what we do. And again, not presuming that we know, and that our people, our viewers out there, know what drives us and what causes us to do the work that we do every day, what really motivates us. That, I think, is the core of what's in digital storytelling. The other thing I want to say is that visuals and audio matter, right? It matters how you tell your story. It matters. Production value matters. So many nonprofits are creating video content at a low level of quality. There may be some good content there, and at the end of the day, a great story, whether it's told through an iPhone or through an HD camera or a multi-camera setup, is still a beautiful story. But what we found is that people, when they can engage visually and auditorily at a deep level with the content, that same great story turns into something completely immersive, something that's really captivating and engaging, with great sound tracking, with great audio, all of those things. So, one of the things that we do is we work with a lot of nonprofits who've never actually done production. And thank you, Lady Sarah Hartfield. That's absolutely correct. It's important to look and sound good, or you lose the audience. Absolutely. That's totally at the core of what we're doing. So I appreciate that comment. And we work with a lot of nonprofits who've never done professional video production. It's a reality. I work with them every day. Part of what we've been able to do by committing to making our product accessible to nonprofits, from a financial standpoint, but also from a production standpoint, being able to introduce people to video production for the first time and not assume that they know all of the jargon and the terminology and how film shoots work and how the whole production process works. We really handhold our clients through that, and many of them are coming in the first time. And what we've been able to do is to really share with them and invite them into this world in which, almost like when people think about TV, people think about broadcast quality, that's accessible to us now. That it's not something that's just in Hollywood. It's not just something on Madison Avenue or in New York City. That we have the ability to access the tools to create really engaging content now at what is an approachable, accessible price for nonprofits. I'm not going to say good production is cheap. It's not the case. But the reality is that the alternative, which is to tell a great story through a very hazy, inaudible lens, is just, to me, is a tragedy. And so I've been able to work with so many organizations to do this, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. But the story does matter. The way that you tell the story matters. The visuals matter. I'm going to share a brief video, a recent video that I think did a really excellent job. It's a video that was actually put out by Facebook. Whatever your opinion of Facebook as a company, I think they did a really tremendous job with this. This was a promotional ad that they did for their voting information center, which is the tools that they have to enable people to be able to easily register to vote and to engage with the electoral process in a nonpartisan way, clearly, but with the tools that they need. And they created an ad that really, I think, speaks to this kind of storytelling that we're looking to do. This idea that visuals matter, audio matters, the way that you approach the story, the way you engage with your viewer matters. So I'm going to show this video briefly, and I'd love to just kind of dissect and parse through a little bit of what I think is so effective in this video. And I'd love your feedback as well. I'm going to play it briefly. It's only about a minute, so don't worry. I hope people were able to see that. Maybe somebody could just nod in the in the comments. Oh, great. Thank you, Fenar. Appreciate that. Yeah, so to me, this is a very effective video. It's only a minute long, so you don't get the kind of deep storytelling that you might get in a longer form interview-based piece, but you're able to very quickly feel the sense of urgency around the cause that in this case Facebook is advocating, which is using their platform and their tools as a way to engage with voting, which I think we can all agree is a righteous cause, no matter which you're. Who or what cause you are voting for. So to me, what's so compelling about this piece, and I'd love to get other comments in the comment section as well if you have thoughts about it, is that it has such a driving soundtrack. So the audio is so driving. All of the sound effects, all of the visuals that sync up with them are just drive this piece forward. That's such an important thing today. People have these little tiny attention spans of 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute and a half if you're lucky, if you've got a story. And we have to be able to drive forward a sense of urgency and a sense of action. And largely that's done through audio. People think about videos and they think about the visuals. The best kept secret in the industry, I believe, is that audio is what makes a great video. If you think about it, when you think about a video, think about going into a movie theater. It's a classic example. I know it's been a while for most of us, maybe since that's happened. But if you go into a movie theater and you sit down and the movie starts to play and the audio isn't working, there's no movie, right? They're gonna turn the lights back on, and that movie's not gonna happen if they can't get the audio playing. If there's a little bit of an issue with video, if you're streaming a video and the quality isn't 100%, people can tolerate a certain amount of that. But when the audio cuts out or the audio is inaudible, it really destroys the experience of watching a video. And so audio is actually the backbone. It's the core of a video upon which visuals are layered. And so when audio is compelling, when you have beautiful soundtrack that really evokes emotion and evokes a sense of movement, that in and of itself just drives a story forward. And then when you're able to really sync together beautiful audio, really crisp, clear audio, and really compelling visuals, you have a recipe for a really great video. And so all of that factors into the production process, into the recording, into the actual capturing of that sound and those visuals, the lighting, everything. And those kind of nuances and details are really what I think differentiates a sort of good piece of content from a really beautiful piece of content. And I'm not saying that every video has to be gorgeous and cinematic. There are so many videos out there that I'm sure each of us could think of that were so compelling when you watch them, but it was just a person with their cell phone just filming. There's a beauty to that as well. There's a whole style of video production that's really built around handheld iPhones, cameras. There's a whole style there that can be very effectively deployed. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is amazing storytelling on the one side of the camera and amazing production on the other side of the camera. And working together to create that experience is really what we do. Elizabeth, I appreciate your comment here. You wrote, the organization I lead started with a big art festival in the 80s. The festival is a beloved annual tradition for families and art lovers in the region. Was named one of the top 10 art festivals in the entire country in 2018 and 19. Congratulations. Not a personal story, but would it be an effective one to tell in your opinion? So absolutely, origin stories. Origin stories are really at the core, I think, of great nonprofit marketing. Not just nonprofit marketing, also for-profit, but origin stories. This idea that there is a story behind why this organization started. If you don't have an origin story as a nonprofit, I think you're missing out on the opportunity to really sort of engage people at the ground level, bring people in, give them a sense of, okay, this is what motivated these people to do what they do. I resonate with that. That's powerful. I can see why this was created. I can see what problem this was solving. I can see what challenge this is tackling. the origin story, I think, is so critical. And being able to have a through point from that origin story to your current operations. And for people to see a continuity of mission, I think is so incredibly important. So absolutely, I think understanding, what was the motivation behind that? What was it about that art festival in the 80s that was so powerful? Why was it such a beloved annual tradition? Why was it such an important part of what sparked this organization to start? Those same questions I think anybody could ask about their nonprofit and say, what motivated us to start this thing? Why did the founders do this? And what drives it? What keeps it moving to today? And there can be an evolution, and that's okay. That's every organization is like a living being. It evolves and grows over time. But what is the through point? What is it that carries it through? What's that common thread throughout the entire piece? So thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing that. I hope that video gave you a little bit of a sense of, I think, what is so powerful in video content and in storytelling. Like I said, that's a quick ad. That's a 1-minute piece. When we do longer pieces with sit-down interviews, we can go really deep into the story, into the content, and we can layer over that visuals, what we call B-roll, that really not just tell the story, but show the story of what people are experiencing and going through. And I say that every great story starts with a storyteller. So who is it that's speaking, and why should I care about that person? What's unique about that person? I start every interview with biographical questions just because I want to learn about you. I want to learn about you and what motivates you. I think that's just so important. And again, as we're going through this presentation, please, by all means, if you have in the comments, if you'd like to share a story that motivated you, that would be great. And questions as well. And I'll open up some time for questions in just a minute. Before I do that, though, I just want to kind of summarize a little bit what we've been discussing and give people some real kind of concrete, useful, actionable steps that they can take if they really want to up their nonprofit marketing game. The first thing that I just want to summarize, as I said in the very beginning, is storytelling is at the heart of nonprofit marketing. It is that ability to share that spark, to share the essence of what it is that motivates you individually or somebody within your organization, whether it be a donor, a major donor, a board member, a volunteer. All of the stakeholders in your organization carry stories within them that are captivating. In some ways, that is the organizational story. People don't engage as much with organizations as they do with individuals. So if you think about what brings people closer to your nonprofit, it's not so much the abstract concept of the nonprofit. It's the people within it that really drive engagement. And so being able to connect the stories of individuals to the mission of the organization in a clear, concise way is really at the core of storytelling. So that's a very important piece. And then, like I said, it's not just the video content in and of itself as an end in itself. Video is the opener. It's the starting point to a conversation. And so thinking of video as one channel within your marketing campaigns, social, email, SMS, people are doing mobile applications now. I think there's a space for that as well. Website, all of these different tools, these channels work together to be able to create a multi-channel marketing campaign. And that last piece I just want to share around the term campaign is important too. So I encourage every nonprofit to think of their marketing in sprints called campaigns. It doesn't have to be a week-long sprint. It could be a month-long, it could be a 2-month. But campaigns, I think, are so essential to thinking about how you market a nonprofit. The reason is that a campaign has a goal. It has a purpose. It's a sort of self-contained project. And so when you think about an annual campaign, and we do a number of annual fundraising campaign videos, I like to think about an annual campaign. Each annual campaign is having its own driving motivator. So what is it this year that's so essential about why you're fundraising? Again, people are attracted to stories. They're attracted to individuals. They're not attracted to organizations. And so what is the story of the people of your organization this year. What have they done? How have they stepped up in the face of COVID-19? How has your mission become even more critical in this moment? Those are the types of questions that our nonprofit clients are answering in our interviews. And so, like I said, storytelling, campaigning, and thinking of video content as the centerpiece of a great nonprofit marketing campaign. That is the essence of what we advise our clients to do. And we've seen the results, whether it be crowdfunding and in terms of fundraising dollars, engagement with the content, building relationships with people, quickly onboarding people, volunteers, employees into an organization. Video content can accomplish all of those goals. I'm now open to taking some questions from folks. Julie, what biographical questions do you ask? That's a great question. So depending on the interview, there's a lot of different ways to approach it. I have a very conversational style when it comes to interviewing. And so what I like to do is I like to begin with, tell me your name and where you're from. Really just opening a conversation. I think that the best interview content is conversational. So of course there are sound bites that we're going to pull out of those conversations, and we're going to construct a story, we're going to construct a narrative. But I find that when people are engaged in conversation, they're not sharing sound bites in a self-conscious way. They're not acting. It's not like they're scripted. When people are in conversation with you and they feel a sense of back and forth, they are not speaking so much to the camera as to me. And then I'm able to really elicit the kind of emotional vulnerability that I need to do a good interview. It sounds manipulative, and I'm sorry, but the reality is that great interviewing comes down to emotional openness. It comes down to people bearing their soul and being honest and open and vulnerable. I sometimes tell my colleagues, when we do these very emotional pieces, I might have 2 or 3 interviews in a day or two, and people break down in tears. It's the reality. It's the truth. There's a part of me that feels that really feels for them, but there's another part of me that knows it's not a feeling of guilt. It's a feeling of release, that this story was in them and I could get it out. And we end those interviews, not in COVID times, but in regular times, with a hug, because we've been able to share something. And it's that sense of sharing, it's that sense of openness that I think is so critical. Patty, how long should the story be? Great question. Every video is different. I have clients who come in and they say, I want a 15-minute video. I said, that's a short film. I mean, let's be honest about what that is. By the time we're done planning and concepting together, we have a 2.5-minute piece. And I'll tell you that 2.5-minute piece is more impactful than a long belabored 15-minute piece could ever be. But it can go the other way as well. When we get into the work and we realize that what began as a 90-second vignette has turned into a 7-minute deep dive, we can do that too. So it really depends upon what is the story. People, every story has a narrative arc, and people appreciate a story that really follows that trajectory. They call it the hero's journey, is sort of the template of the narrative arc of storytelling. You can look it up, hero's journey. But there's a sort of essential rhythm to a great story, and that rhythm might take several minutes to play out, but it could also maybe take a minute and a half. It really just depends upon the content and the speaker and just how they communicate. Angela says, is there an external microphone you would recommend to go with phone video to boost sound quality? There are so many good external microphones on the market. I would say it depends upon your needs, and audio always depends upon what you're capturing. So whether you're going to use a lavalier mic, a lav mic, whether you're going to boom mic over somebody, which is what we typically do, with a directional mic that's going to actually capture their audio from above. It really just depends on the project. We also like to have backups. So, whenever you're recording, you want to have contingency plans. If one microphone battery dies or whatever, you've got another one. And so we'll often put a lav on people and also a boom mic overhead. to be able to capture that audio, or a shotgun mic, a directional shotgun mic on the camera itself, to be able to capture that audio from multiple sources, and just in case, especially if there's going to be a lot of ambient sound around. You always have to be thoughtful about that. When we're doing virtual events, we've got people who are in spaces that are very noisy. We have to remind them, look, we need to eliminate as much audio outside of you as possible. When you listen to podcasts or news reports these days, with a lot of the newsrooms closed, you actually have people, if you've seen the pictures, NPR and other reporters, they're sitting in their closets, or they've created a kind of teepee, curtain teepee within their room, and they're going into a very confined space with a ton of insulating soft materials that are going to just capture any of that outside exterior noise and sound, and also are going to keep the sound of what they're saying in, and so it doesn't echo in many different directions. So I would say just as important as a microphone is the positioning and the arrangement of a subject in a room. If you're doing a conference, for example, a Zoom meeting, and you want to have much more intelligible audio, and you've got someone with a very echoey room, you can actually just say to them, look, do you have a couple pillows? Do you have a blanket or a throw that we can put over this? Basically, anything hard surfaces are what echo things. So you can actually change the acoustics in a room very easily by just putting a few objects in that room that can absorb sound, whether it be a pillow, a beanie bag, a beanbag chair, anything soft, a blanket, hanging over a chair. All of those things can actually have a tremendous impact on sound. So that's just as important as the equipment that you're using. Yeah. Other questions? I know we've only got a few minutes left, but I want to, be able to answer any questions that people might have. Yeah. Julie, our org was awarded a grant that is allowing us to create and ship 4,000 free copies of a book. Your thoughts on the best way to get this info out? Interesting. To create and ship. So, I mean, there's a lot of approaches there. We could talk a little bit more offline, about strategies there. But I think that, one of the things that every nonprofit can really benefit from is what I call a social media audit. So if you are a nonprofit and you have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube channel, website, whatever your channels are through which you communicate online, email marketing, whether you use MailChimp, Constant Contact, any of these other tools. I've been doing for years what we call a social media audit, which is it's an opportunity for us to take stock of what channels you are using right now and how effectively are you using them. I actually do these pro bono for plenty of clients, just because I want them to understand the difference between how they perceive themselves communicating online and how they're actually communicating, the actual impact, the reach, the engagement of what they're actually putting out there. I think there's often a tremendous gap between expectation and reality there. And it's by no fault of the nonprofits. They really are doing a good job of creating messaging, but it's not necessarily getting out in the right form and in the right way. So I'd love to talk with anybody here. You can email me. My email is, and I'll write it down here, justin@flowvideo.com. I would love to talk to you about putting together a social media audit. We just put together a 1 or 2 page document that really shows you how your content is being received, how it's reaching out, how is it actually promulgating online, whether by email, social media, whatever it may be. And the results can be surprising. You might actually find that you're having more engagement on a channel that you thought wasn't as effective, and less engagement on a channel that you thought was more effective. It really comes down to not just going into that analytics section on Facebook or looking at your email marketing reports, but tying together, connecting the dots between web traffic, social media views and engagement and comments and likes, email marketing opens and click-throughs. There is a way that we can be able to track the journey of one viewer, of one participant across those channels, and see how people are actually finding you, how they're engaging with you, what they're doing. That to me, I think, is the beginning to the answer of Julie's question of how do I actually get out the word about these free ebooks or books, or any marketing strategy question begins with, what are we working with? What is our social media audit? Patty, can you share what the cost range is to produce a digital story? The short answer is there's a tremendous range in our industry. And so, I like to say sometimes that video is a luxury good, in the sense that people pay top dollar for video content. It's not something necessarily essential, some people would say, to marketing. It's a luxury. I actually also, though, believe that it is such an essential component. So there is an entire industry, and the pricing varies tremendously across that, depending, again, on the production value, depending on what goes into the planning. So a lot of larger organizations and companies use agencies to do what we call the creative work, the scripting, the storyboarding, the concepting, the planning, the pitching, all of the sort of ideation that goes into creating video content. We do work with agencies and larger brands as well, but our primary function is to serve as a one-stop shop. So people who come to us, the clients come to us, they may have a very vague or raw or half-baked idea of what they want to tell, what story they want to tell, what kind of video they want to create, but it's not fully formed yet. And we work with them, our clients, to really produce what we call pre-production, to concept and create that story so that we can then film it and edit it and release it. And we also work on the marketing end. So we actually help them on the distribution end to get their content out. So we consider ourselves a one-stop shop. When it comes to price, like I said, there's a range. It's a tremendous range. And I would say everything depends upon your needs. And one area that I would just encourage people to think about is the budgeting when it comes to marketing for nonprofits. It's almost cliche to say that nonprofits under budget and underspend on marketing and communications. Some of that is for good, because we want to stay focused on the mission. We want to stay focused on the work and keep our overhead low. But the reality is there is a direct correlation between your ability to engage people and your ability to do the mission and do the work that you need to do. And so thinking of marketing and communications as an essential component, and thinking of storytelling as an essential component of your mission, I think is so important. And I can work with anybody here to talk through, not just for my company, Flow Video, but really helping to guide you in the right direction when it comes to video storytelling, digital storytelling, and also marketing strategy writ large. So I know I'm out of time. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. My email is there, justin@flowvideo.com. You can find me by email. You can also find me on social. I'm here. I'd love to talk more with you. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was useful. I know I talked a lot, but I hope I also got to answer some of your questions and really maybe pique your interest a bit in using video content to market your nonprofits. Thank you so much.